Hi, and welcome to your Introduction to Art Therapy. My name is Pamela Hayes, and I am a registered and board-certified art therapist. I've been working in this field of art therapy for over 20 years, and I still love my job. First, we're going to start with the fundamentals of art therapy. What is it, and what is it not? Oftentimes when people ask me what I do and I explain to them that I am an art therapist, their response is, what is that? So I get questions like, is it therapy for artists? Or do you take your clients to museums? My explanation is I use creative expressions such as painting, drawing, collage, and sculpture as a way to express ourselves, as another way of communicating when speaking and words just aren't enough. The creative process taps into our subconscious in a way that we just can't do when we're talking. Art making and the creative process can be therapeutic in and of itself. It can be a form of relaxation where you get lost in the process and you're just enjoying moving paints around on a paper or building something. The art can also build self-esteem. So often people tell me, I can't draw, I can't do anything creative. So what I do is take the time and teach them the skills to be more creative. What you're looking at here are some intricately beaded necklaces. They're a simple, repetitive pattern that I can easily teach somebody. They can get lost in the process of making these necklaces. And while they're engaged in that process, their hands are busy and their eyes don't have to make eye contact with me. So oftentimes I find my clients are much more open to discussion when they don't have to look at me. But when they complete these necklaces, they feel so good about themselves because they had no idea they had those skills in them. And I brought them out, and now they can realize that they just did something they were convinced they couldn't do. Art can also release tensions and anxieties. I really believe that anxiety and depression and anger and all of our emotions are physical energies. We want to be able to get them out of our body in a non-destructive way. And using the creative process and materials is an amazing release. I can give my clients a piece of wood and have them hammer nails into it in a way that is creative and non-destructive and satisfying and loud and a lot of fun. I also will give them colored rubber bands and ask them to string the rubber bands back and forth so that they create this interesting, intricate final product that looks really good, and again, you've raised their self-esteem. You can see how I make this process on my podcast titled 3-Minute Art Therapy. Now let's take a look at the 5 different modalities of art therapy as I see them. The first modality is art as assessment. I can use the creative process and the materials as a way to assess what's going on with my clients. This is a beaded lizard. It's a much simpler version of the necklace that I just showed you. And I can do a lot of assessing while they are creating this lizard. I can assess to see if they're able to follow directions and understand patterns. I can see if they're willing to work with me and accept my help. I'm also looking to see what their attention span is, how well their fine motor skills are working, and what is their hand-eye coordination. So doing this project gives me a lot of information on who it is I'm working with. The second modality is art as the expression of feelings. In this intervention, I asked a woman in her 40s to draw how she was feeling right now. She talked about feeling tired and depressed and isolated and alone. And you can really see all those things going on in this picture. Not only is this figure turned away from the viewer, but the figure also doesn't have arms, which could be a feeling of not having control over her environment, not being able to reach out and express herself through touch. You can also see in the head that there's a lot of swirls going on, and that's what she explained as her anxiety always spinning around in her head. Modality number 3 is art as insight and understanding. What are our motivations and our internal subconscious desires? Oftentimes, when I'm looking for insight and to understand my client, I will give them a specific directive. In this case, I've asked a 14-year-old boy to draw a person picking an apple out of a tree. I can assess his problem-solving skills, I can understand what his motivations are, how he looks at the world, and what tools he uses to get through the world. Also, if he feels like there's maybe threats to his environment or that he can't accomplish a task. There's a lot that I can understand from this type of intervention. Modality number 4 is art as mood versus affect. This is the same 14-year-old boy that we just saw in the last intervention. In this case, he is using papier-mâché masks to express his inside me and his outside me. His inside me represents his mood, depression, anxiety, fears, loathing, and his outside me expresses what he shows to the world, a happy, blonde-haired, blue-eye, all-American boy. Finally, modality number 5 is art as therapeutic. When we get lost in the process, building, taping, ripping, collaging, putting things together, working with our hands, we get so engaged that we forget to feel our pain, be that emotional or physical. And so the art can be a form of therapy in and of itself. We've definitely seen benefits of art therapy. Let's review what we've looked at. We see that art can be an alternative form of communication to really tap into our desires and our fears. We now know that the art and the creative process can help bypass the internal censors that we put in place when we speak. The art allows distance from our feelings. It's easier to draw a tree and then talk about how that tree is angry or alone than to fully take responsibility for feeling alone and angry. It can provide a means of release where we can use the materials to express pent-up anger, frustration, and anxiety. The art can be put away and reviewed and looked at again later, a week from now or 3 months from now, and we can compare it to how we're feeling now and how we were feeling a while ago. The art can really connect people together. If they're all working on one project simultaneously, or maybe even working on one big project together, everybody feels like they're part of a group and everybody is literally on the same page. Now it's time for a case study. I want to introduce you to Patty. She's 30 years old. She dropped out of high school when she was in the 10th grade. Patty has been diagnosed with bipolar. She's a diabetic. She has intellectual developmental limitations. I actually start seeing Patty while she's in prison. This is actually her third round of being in prison for drug possession, theft, and solicitation. She has also recently experienced the death of her grandfather, and that's a great loss to her. In the first session, I asked Patty to do some scribble drawings. In this case, I make some scribbles and then I hand them over to her and I ask Patty to make my scribbles into something. So I've made a yellow scribble and she makes it into a ribbon. Then I give her a new piece of paper and I make a red scribble and she makes it into a face. And in the third piece of paper, I make an orange pointy scribble and she makes it into a sailboat. I asked Patty to make up a story using all three images, and what she said was, once upon a time, there was a girl who had a face, and she wore a ribbon and she went for a ride on a sailboat, the end. Now remember, Patty's a little bit limited in her intellectual functioning, so her creativity and ability to make up stories is also going to be limited. She tells me that the girl had a pretty face, and she liked being on the sailboat because she was on that sailboat with her father and her grandfather. And then Patty started telling me a story about a photograph that sits on her mantle in Grandma's house. It was a picture of the three of them on a sailboat, so this is a real memory that she has. Patty's father and mother both died in a tragic car accident when Patty was 3 years old, and so Patty was brought up and raised by her grandmother and her grandfather. And so the fact that her grandfather just recently died is a huge loss for her. In the second session, I instruct Patty to draw a bridge. The bridge is an amazing drawing to tap into metaphors such as transition, change, even support system. What's holding her bridge up? What does Patty feel supported by? And it also takes a look at possible threats and fears in the environment. I asked Patty to explain her drawing, and she says that she is alone in the red boat below the bridge. She says she's fishing, but she's not happy in the boat. She's scared. It makes sense to feel scared if you look at that drawing. There's a lot of environmental threats that she's facing. The waves are way higher than the boat. They look like they can crash down and capsize the boat. She's very tiny. She's alone, unlike the other boat from last week where she had a grandfather and a father with her. And that fish that she's about to catch is way bigger than she is, and that could be dangerous. So of course Patty is scared and feeling isolated. Then she tells me about the people who are walking across the bridge. She says that they are just random people, a dad and a mom pushing a baby in a baby carriage, and they don't take any notice of her. They're happy while she's trapped in the water. And no wonder she feels trapped. She's in prison. I asked Patty about the sun in the sky, and she says, "Oh yes, that's grandfather up in the sky. And he's smiling because he's happy to be in heaven, but he's also crying because he's looking down on me and he knows how sad I am, and he's scared that I'm going to hurt myself because I want to be with him." I point out to Patty that the number 3 reoccurs many times in her drawing. She has grandfather crying 3 tears. There's 3 people on the bridge, a father, a mother, and a baby. And there's 3 fish under the water. So when I asked Patty if 3 is a significant number to her, she said, "No, not really. I didn't think about that." But I remind her that this is her third time in prison. We talk about the fact that when she was growing up, it was always her and grandfather and grandmother in the house, so 3 people in her primary family. And one thing that I didn't know until Patty mentioned it was that she has 3 children from 3 different fathers, and her parental rights have been terminated from all of those children because of her in and out of prison and her unstable home life. So many times, those kind of reoccurring numbers can be very significant in the artwork. This drawing tells me so much about who Patty is and what's going on for her right now. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Did you enjoy this free presentation? I hope you did. Do you want more art therapy? If you do, please visit my website at hayesarttherapy.com. There, you will find Patty's entire case study for only $35. And I will be placing new content on my website every month, case studies, videos, discounts, and more. You can join a subscription for only $9.99 a month, or you can purchase things individually. My name is Pamela Hayes. I'm a board-certified art therapist. Once again, thank you for joining me. Now go do something creative.